In the 19th century, millions crossed oceans in search of freedom, but what they found was a nation divided over who deserved it.
As the nation expanded, so did the complexity of its immigration system. Castle Garden opened in 1855 as the nation's first immigration center, a chaotic hub where millions from Ireland, Germany, and Northern European nations arrived. They fled famine, failed political revolts, and economic hardship, but for many, their struggle continued on American soil. Nativist movements emerged, arguing that these newcomers threatened American values. The Know-Nothing Party of the 1850s built its platform on anti-immigrant ideals, demanding longer naturalization periods and restrictions on Catholic immigrants, primarily immigrating from Ireland and Germany.
In 1891, the federal government assumed full control of immigration with the Immigration Act, shifting authority from state governments to a centralized system. Ellis Island opened in 1892, a grand processing center where each arrival faced a test, not just of health and identity, but of their right to belong. Inspectors judged who could stay and who would be turned away. The promise of America became conditional, filtered through a growing network of laws that defined who was fit for American life.
By the early 1900s, the dominant flow of immigrants shifted from Northern and Western Europe to Southern and Eastern Europe. Italians fleeing poverty, Jews escaping Russian pogroms, and Poles seeking work. But with this shift came a surge of anti-immigrant sentiment. Newspapers warned of foreign hordes changed the nation's identity. Politicians pushed for restrictions, including literacy tests, quotas, and outright bans. The debate over immigration was no longer just about economic or political concerns. It was about defining who deserved freedom in America and what they had to do to get it.
For each who stepped ashore, a new story began. In a dusty Italian village where hard labor offers little reward, Maurizio Mozzarella works tirelessly as a stonemason, while his wife Nicola tends to a modest fire and their son Marco plays with a worn toy, each clinging to the hope of a better future across the Atlantic.
Another dry season, Maurizio. The well is empty, and the fields, they won't feed us anymore.
No! They promised work in the city, but the machines! They do the work of 10 men. I can't compete. A man without his trade is nothing.
Your hands built half this village. They have to be worth something.
Not here. Not anymore. But they say there is work in America. Any man willing to use his hands can feed his family.
Papa, will there be bread in America?
There will be, Marco. More than you can eat. For Jews like Micah and Shoshana Goldstein, pogroms were a nightmare without end. Their only chance was escape.
In the chaos of a burning village, Micah and Shoshana cling to each other, hiding from violent radicals, each desperate step driven by the hope of safety in a distant land.
In America, they say we can work without fear.
Micah, where's mother and father?
Gone! They're gone, Shoshana. We have to leave before someone sees us.
But where will we go? America. They say you can pray without fear, that nobody will burn your home for what you believe.
Is that true?
It has to be.
For the Batas, rising taxes and anti-Hungarian policies left them with nothing but hope for a fresh start.
Another tax? You've bled this shop dry. How are we to live?
Pay or leave! Foreigners have no place here without a cost.
Adelbert, please, we can find another way.
Another way? Another way to starve?
They say in America, no one cares where you're from. If you can work, you can live.
If that's true, then we must go. Here, we're strangers in our own home.
For the Rostovas, survival meant fleeing, for Russia was a land consumed by fear and persecution.
Alona, Misha, and Olga dashed through a dense forest, branches crawling at them. As distant shouts of soldiers pierced the air, Alona's grip tightening around a small cross, a fragile token of faith in a state consumed by chaos.
God will protect us in this new land.
Mama, why are they looking for us?
Because they fear what they do not understand, and because they think that our faith makes us dangerous.
But in America, they don't care.
And they say we are free to worship as we choose, but we must reach it. We must be brave.
But it's so far.
Not as far as living here in fear. Not as far as hiding forever.
Between 1820 and 1910, America's immigration policies were shaped by conflicting ideas of who deserved freedom. At Ellis Island, millions arrived seeking opportunity, but many found that freedom came with conditions: health inspections, interrogations, and even name changes.
Nativist movements surged, claiming that immigrants were a threat to American values, jobs, and racial purity. Organizations like the Know Nothing Party targeted Catholics, Jews, and Asians, declaring them unfit for American citizenship.
America's promise of freedom collided with its reality. Immigrants crowded into tenements, worked dangerous jobs, and faced relentless prejudice. Laws that promised opportunity often became tools of exclusion.
Amid discrimination and hardship, immigrants fought for their place in America. They joined labor strikes, formed unions, and demanded fair wages and safer conditions. For many, survival meant resistance. Between 1820 and 1910, the United States positioned itself as a nation founded on principles of freedom and opportunity, yet its immigration policies starkly contradicted this narrative. These laws functioned as mechanisms of exclusion, selectively determining who was permitted entry, who was deemed deserving of economic and social opportunities, and who was systematically marginalized or rejected.
For those who stayed, survival meant struggle. They crowded into tenements, worked dangerous jobs, and built neighborhoods where English was rarely spoken. Yet, they also led strikes, demanding better wages and formed communities in defiance of exclusion.